Dr. Vanessa Perato, welcome. So, your very sad day. In Sydney, this happens so rarely, but is it the case that sharks are basically a constant presence both in the harbour and along the coast?
Well, good morning. It's such a tragic event, and my condolences to the family and friends of this person. We know that sharks do play important ecological roles in our marine environment, and if we think about it, humans are swimming with sharks every day. However, the extent of which species they're swimming with is likely to vary off Sydney. So we know off Bondi, for example, the grey nurse sharks, which are known to be quite placid in nature. There's with swimmers every day. And in this case, we have a swimmer that's swimming and unfortunately it has encountered an animal which is quite large, and the species has not been 100% confirmed. It does seem to be most likely a white in this case.
And why do you say that?
Well, it's large. The behaviours of unfortunately when it struck someone it's large, as I said. But the behaviour, it's ambushed. What people were describing, there's a whole variety of different things in place rather, to suggest that it is most likely this species. However, New South Wales Department of Primary Industries will be best placed to work with other authorities like Surf Lifesaving to try and see if there is a large animal in the area and to best identify the type of species here in this incident.
And so maybe you can just be more specific with you mentioned a whites, where you often hear people refer to great whites. Just talk us through the distinction there, and how often are white or great white sharks along the coast of Sydney?
Yes, so that's a great question, and it's a bit of poor communication from me, but white sharks, or also known as the great white shark, they're the same animal.
Right.
And what we do know is that these animals are from time to time off Sydney, and so we do have drone vision of these animals moving in and doing different things, but they're not off Sydney every single day, in my opinion. So we're more likely to see other animals like the wobbegong or the grey nurse shark, but for a white shark the size of 4 to even 5 metres in length, we'd probably know if there was an animal off Sydney often like that, because people are in the sky, on the boats, looking for these types of things. And it's likely that this animal may have come into the area as a result of a number of environmental reasons. So it could be currents, there could be warm water in certain areas, or prey. Believe it or not, these animals do follow prey, and this will, in this case, potentially may have led this animal close to shore. And you've had someone who's having a really nice swim in the afternoon, a lot of daylight, and the water wasn't too rough, although in that area it did seem for a swimmer to be quite wavy, and you've just got an overlap in the same habitat where unfortunately this has resulted in a tragedy.
And why do you believe it's the case that great white sharks are kind of intermittent visitors along the coastline, whereas you believe your grey nurses are there virtually all the time?
Well, that comes down to species. So there's some really fantastic research on white shark movements in Australian waters, and it's fantastic to see that these animals, through research, have shown that they've moved huge geographical positions. So they can go from Sydney up to Newcastle, further than that, and in other cases rather, can go all the way over across to New Zealand. So that's pretty interesting. Whereas we know other species, more local, like the grey nurse and wobbegongs, well, they don't have huge geographical ranges. They are capable of movements, but not to the great extent of international talking. So it is species specific. And in this case, we have, unfortunately, all the telltale signs of what would most likely be a white shark. But again, New South Wales Department of Primary Industries will be working on site and also with the other authorities to try and determine if there is any other sharks around or if this shark may be within the area still. However, there is all eyes from the sky and on land trying to assess the situation right now, which is good news for everyone else.
And what's the extent of the shark presence within Sydney Harbour itself? So this is around from where this attack happened. But yeah, what's the extent? And because there have been a number of attacks over the last couple of decades, and bull sharks are fairly prevalent in Sydney Harbour itself.
Well, bull sharks are a migratory animal, and they are known to be in Sydney Harbour at this time of the year. And so these animals will migrate from the northern waters, so the northern New South Wales, Queensland area, and come into Sydney Harbour at this time of year. And there's some great research being done by Dr. Smoothian and the others at New South Wales Department of Primary Industries and Dr. Vic Pettimores. And they're doing some fantastic tracking work on these animals to show their movements inside the harbour. And this is happening for many years now. And what this is able to show us that these animals are capable of moving inside the harbour, even up Parramatta River, and then will make their way on out when the time is right. But there are incidences of people interacting with sharks, and there has been famous instances with a Navy diver, for example, with a bull shark. And
at Garden Island.
It is unfortunately, we are entering their environment, and we do need to bear in mind that they are part of the natural ecosystem.
And so this attack happened several hundred metres away from that popular Little Bay beach and off rocks. There are people who love their ocean swimming, and people, who have Sydney has this really tight relationship with the water. People, it's just part of people's lives. This person was very unlucky. What's your advice to people who love their swimming and have heard about this and are thinking, okay, how should I adjust my activities, or should I adjust them at all?
Yeah, there's I can see already on Twitter so many people going, oh my gosh, I swim near there, or it's completely, this rocks the science world and also the community. The other thing I would suggest is when I looked at the location of where this incident occurred, it was a non-patrolled area.
Yep.
So actions like swimming between the flags is a really good thing to do if you're going to swim in the ocean where it's patrolled. Also, the idea of don't swim at dawn or dusk. Well, in this case, this is in complete daylight. So it's all about having beach safety and being beach aware, although you can never predict these types of incidences, and they are very, I must point out, very, very unlikely to happen, and the statistics are quite low. So if you're going to the ocean, my best advice would be swim between the flags and make sure you tell someone where you are, or even swim with a buddy. And it's really good to be aware that the environment, the marine environment in particular, is full of wonderful things. But in this case, unfortunately, we've had a tragic interaction where we've had a human and a shark overlap in the habitat of the shark that was unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, and what's your view of the course of action that officials generally take in these situations where they try to track down the shark responsible?
Very good question. So obviously we want to do everything we can to prevent this type of thing happening, and that's completely understandable. But in this case, the best action that could be taken right now, and what is happening, is to look to see if there is that animal in the area and to see if there's likely to be others. But in terms of trying to find the shark that is responsible for this interaction, it would be very unlikely to find the animal that has done this. There are some other places geographically where it might be the case the animal might be hanging around. But as I said before, these animals are capable of large geographical movements, and it's not likely that it would be sticking around in the area. It may do so, it may prove him wrong, but the authorities, in terms of trying to find where the animal is, will be doing that effort right now. And other measures that New South Wales Department of Primary Industries could do as well, and most likely are doing right now, are using smart drum lines where they can bait and place a bait out there. So if an animal hooks onto that bait, it can let them know that there's a shark on their line, and then they can relocate that animal.
And what's your view of the approach there's been over the years with netting and trying to minimise the likelihood of shark attacks in Sydney? And what is the situation with that at the moment?
Well, shark nets are always a controversial one. People want them, some people don't. Shark nets also, unfortunately, kill a lot of other animals that are not intended to be caught by sharks. And I'm talking whales, dolphins, other species. But they have been in place for a while, and unfortunately, this incident has happened where there was a non-netted area, but the reality is you could hop into the ocean around Australia and you could interact with a shark. Yeah. They live in the ocean. This is something that we need to remind ourselves, that sharks are in there. And this is a really unfortunate interaction that has caused waves across the world. People are talking about it because it doesn't happen every day. In fact, the last known fatal shark attack in this area was in 1963. So no wonder people are wanting to know and would like to know about their beach safety, and also if this animal is likely to be in the area. So it's definitely something that we should all be reflecting on, but just remember that this is a very unfortunate and unlikely scenario, and that swimming in the ocean does have that risk of interacting with sharks, whether it is a positive one or in this case, a negative one.